middle of the 60s, there were 13 million students enrolled in higher education. In 2015, there were 200 million. In less than 15 years, they're expected to be 400 million.
在大学期间呢，就是没有想到，就是以后来北京是这种情况，就是来北京的好多人都是这样。
While the demand keeps growing, university tuition fees skyrocket. The world over, the cost of education is high, increasingly high.
It's terrible. Before college, I was poor. Now I'm extremely poor.
I don't understand, how can a school be a scam?
In the name of so-called economic pragmatism, and as a result of international competition, universities are turning into huge money-making machines.
None of my family members went to university. I think I wanted to be that one.
From Shanghai to New York, Paris to Berlin, countries around the world reflect, trying different moves, each remodeling its system in its own way. But at what price? And who profits from it? Here we are at the starting point of our story, which begins at the end of the 90s. At that time, Europe is financializing itself, all the while expanding. Many intellectuals, European university presidents, and expert groups engage in a vast reflection on how to build a more complete, more ambitious Europe. How to strengthen its intellectual, scientific, and technological influence. What is the secret of the United States and its economic power? The answer lies in higher education and research, a realm that has become undeniably strategic.
As the High Sheriff of Middlesex County, I declare that the meeting will be adjourned!
At the end of the 20th century, American universities prevail and rule. Europe is afraid of finding itself on the sidelines. It needs a strategy. And so Europe engages in a series of reforms to make its higher education more competitive, so it can serve Europe's economy, its productivity, its job market, and its liberal project. England will quickly set the tone before anyone else, and it gets straight to the point.
After the Second World War, we had a system where local education authorities around the country were responsible for providing a grant to students and covering tuition fees. And that was at a time when roughly 3% of 18-year-olds went to university, around 20,000 a year.
All science students will, for their first 2 terms, be required to attend lectures on physics, chemistry, mathematics, and biology. It will also be possible for science students to major in philosophy.
Knowledge is not a set of facts, but a huge net woven in one piece and covering all subjects, all places, all peoples.
In the 1980s and 1990s, there was a funding crisis amongst universities, lots of vice-chancellors complaining that they didn't have enough money to cover the amount of students that were now coming through the system. So the government commissioned a report, and this was called the Deering Report, and that came up with a number of recommendations, almost 100 recommendations, roughly half for the government about how it could maintain, sustain and improve higher education in the UK. And one of the most controversial parts of that report was the introduction of tuition fees.
In 1997, the British left, led by its young charismatic candidate Tony Blair, wins the elections after 18 long years of Conservative rule. At the age of 43, the head of the Labour Party takes charge of the country with a programme whose foundation is to apply private sector management models to public services, so as to make them more efficient, more productive. Higher education will be no exception.
Right. We need to widen access to universities, get more money into universities, and the best and fairest way to do it is a balance between the state and the graduate.
So tuition fees became reality in 1998, and it was a key landmark in the history of higher education in the UK because at that moment, the principle of free education, free higher education in the UK finished.
For this historic reform, Tony Blair introduces the yearly £1,000 tuition fee, a smooth way to start. 5 years later, prompted by his second-term election, Tony Blair authorises universities to charge tuition fees up to £3,300 yearly. Tony Blair, head of Britain's Labour Party, successfully passed a reform that the Conservatives would never have dared bring forward. In 2010, the Labour Party rallies the opposition. The coalition, made of Liberal Democrats and Conservatives led by David Cameron, take charge of the country. Very rapidly, the debate over tuition fees arises on the political scene again. This time, the government intends to authorise tuition fees up to £9,000 yearly, all the while reducing the portion of public funding allocated to universities. This new reform violently divides both members of Parliament and public opinion.
There have been very difficult choices to make. We have opted for a set of policies that provides a strong base for university funding, which makes a major contribution to reducing the deficit and introducing a significantly more progressive system of graduate payments than we inherited. And I'm proud to put forward that measure to this House.
Order! Question in order! There is nothing about that tiny benefit to the lowest income graduates that justifies doubling or trebling the debt of the vast majority of graduates.
Isn't it incredible that the party opposite, who actually introduced the principle of graduates paying and voted for 2 tuition fee increases, is able to drum up quite so much fake anger on the issue this afternoon?
Ask any young person in any poorer communities in our country, what is your prospect? What do you want to do? Many would say, I want to study, I want to qualify, I want to go to university, I want to achieve something in life. Tell them that unless they are very poor, they're going to have to borrow money to survive, to get through university. They simply will not do it.
This decision matters so much to so many people. I'd say to the House, if you don't believe in it, vote against it.
The ayes to the right, 323. The noes to the left, 302.
When the tuition fee cap was removed from £3,000 and it became £9,000 cap, it was up to the university if they wanted to introduce £9,000 maximum fees or anything between £6,000 and £9,000. And unsurprisingly, most universities decided to set their cap at £9,000. Most students, we have now 500,000 students going through every year. Most of those would be paying a minimum £9,000 a year, and that stands today.
Over the course of 15 years, British politicians, a ruling class that had enjoyed free access to education, inflicted a paying system on the new generation. British students, along with their European fellows, now have to deal with these new rulings. That's the way it is. They're young, they long for a solid future, they're thirsty for knowledge and dream of climbing the social ladder. All that has a price tag, and they'd better get used to it. Aneta grew up in a working-class family in the south of Poland. The young woman could have enrolled in a university in Krakow, Berlin, Copenhagen, or even Amsterdam. It would have been free. In England, Aneta was granted a student loan to pay for her £9,000 tuition fee.
I knew I was going to go abroad to study, and I think, well, for a little while I thought it was going to be Scotland, But then I think I decided it was England, you know, like way back, and it just stuck with me. And I came here, and it was scary. It was so scary because I was away from home. I was here alone. I didn't have anyone to turn to. And look at me now. I study Chinese of all the courses that I could have chosen. I can't wait for, you know, what the future holds and what am I going to do. I have so many ideas, but we'll see. I talked to my grandfather once, and we were talking about everything else, and then kind of started talking about university and how much money that costs and everything. And I had many thoughts about, okay, maybe I'll quit, maybe I'll, you know, it's too much, maybe it's not worth it. And then I realized, well, how am I going to pay it back? But that's one of the reasons why I stayed. And another reason, bigger even, is that I like what I do. I think I'm not quite sure where that came from, my need to go to university. I think it's because none of my family members went to university. I think I wanted to be that one first person who did that. And my mom really wanted me to do that as well. She did encourage me strongly. I don't know what I would do without her. If I failed, I would feel like I failed her, and I never want to do that, ever. Because being here and doing what I do and being in university is my way of paying her back for all that she's done for me my whole life. And yeah, I'm good. It's my way of paying back her for everything. And
Will all European students be forced one day to get into debt? Should education become a sellable good? Must students become self-made financiers to earn an education? Northern European countries see things a bit differently.
Så till exempel har vi sett en väldigt stor ökning av engelska studenter i och med att man i England nu måste betala 9 000 pund för att läsa en utbildning, medan det är gratis i Sverige. Ifall du är en Erasmus-student så betalar du aldrig en studieavgift vid ett svenskt lärosäte, för Erasmus är ett studentutbyte. Och likadant ifall du är fransk eller engelsk eller portugisisk eller grekisk medborgare så betalar du heller inga studieavgifter i Sverige. Så därmed så har vi väldigt många sydeuropeer och tyskar och engelsmän som kommer till Sverige för att läsa en hel utbildning på engelska. Men kommer du från ett icke-europeiskt land så måste du betala studieavgifter.
Sweden, just like Denmark and Finland, not only offers free education to European students, but also allocates a universal grant to each Swedish student, €300 a month for 6 years. This way, the student sees his or her time at university as an experience of freedom and learning, a way to shape their critical mind and apprehend the world. Here it's important. It's called the student experience.
Det allra viktigaste för våra studenter, om de är internationella eller kommer från Sverige, det är att de ska växa som människor och känna att de har det självförtroende de behöver för att själv kunna skapa sin framtid, och att de ska kunna tänka fritt och tänka med den hjälp de har fått ifrån universitetet, bilda sin framtid och därmed också stärka landets framtid.
Men mina föräldrar har det. Och det var lite, där fick jag också lite drömmar, för att de har ju hjälpkrattat mig från att jag var liten. Lund. Det är en jävla stad alltså. Okej, det var här vi träffade varandra, mamma och pappa. Du kommer träffa någon bli kär, Marcus. Det kommer bli, ja. Kommer gå på spex. Jag letar efter kärleken.
Jag har aldrig pluggat utomlands för att jag har aldrig känt behov av att plugga. Eller så här, jag reste innan jag började, eller under tid, jag har tagit en sabbatstermin under tid som jag har pluggat. och åkte utomlands till Asien, så när jag kom tillbaka kände jag aldrig så här, men jag behöver inte åka utomlands. Eller så jag har redan haft utlandserfarenhet, upplevelser. Så att av den anledningen, så här, jag har ingen uppfattning om att plugga i Edinburgh eller i Taiwan, eller att det är bättre än någonting annat. Utan mer att det är så här, det sticker ut på ett potentiellt framtida CV. Men det kanske inte ger mig särskilt mycket mer för den sakens skull.
Men sen är det klart att jag menar, när det kommer till Sverige så är ju ändå Lunds universitet ju rankat som ett av de 3 4 bästa. Hade valet stått mellan Lund och Harvard, det är klart att många hade ju valt Harvard om man hade kunnat, om det hade gått ekonomiskt eller betygsmässigt. Men alltså, jag tror inte att många som kommer till Lund känner att att det är en investering som förmodligen kommer betala sig.
För jag tänker, eller så det känns ju mer så här, det känns ju träddigt att åka utomlands och plugga. Att man säger bara, men jag tyckte det var värt att lägga, jag vet inte hur mycket det kostar att ta en kandidat i England. Liksom, det är asmycket pengar. Eller så här, då får man ju se till att få ett jobb. Liksom. Eller jag vet inte, eller det kanske man inte måste, men att jag tänker att också att det slår högre. Alltså tänker jag på ett CV, att jag tog den här utbildningen i London, jag tog den här utbildningen i Frankrike, jag tog den här utbildningen. Det är jättemånga som har läst det.
Ja, det är folk som säger alltid att liksom, välj om ni ska ha konkurrenskraftiga så välj du studera utomlands. Jag har det på ett CV att det är viktigt liksom. Det får man ju höra i alla fall.
En utbildning utom, alltså som du sa förut, om man skulle plugga i England liksom. Det finns inte ens i min tanke. Jag har inte 300 000 som jag kan lägga på en termin.
Inte när man har valet att få det gratis.
Inte när man har valet att få det gratis. En bra utbildning.
Despite what happens elsewhere, the tuition fee increase hasn't deterred young English students from enrolling. In 1998, just before the introduction of tuition fees, there were 800,000 students in English universities. There are now 2.3 million. The cost to access knowledge hasn't deterred them, so why stop there?
The Vice-Chancellors are already making noises about the cap being still too low for £9,000 a year. Many are saying that we need to move to an American-style system where it's much more expensive. It's not the £9,000 cap, it will be much more.
Well, I think what we're witnessing, I mean, across the public sector and the quasi-public sector within the United Kingdom, within the UK, is probably the third phase of competition and privatisation and marketisation since the Second World War. And that's what we've seen in terms of higher education. It's a slow creep. And when you start to introduce that, you get the leadership of universities stop thinking necessarily about the education that they are providing or about the public good and start importing the behaviours of what they see as a competitive environment elsewhere within the private sector.
Manchester is a student city. We've got many different universities here. Manchester Metropolitan University, University of Salford, Northwestern College of Music, Manchester Art Academy, and so on. Our total student population is about 130,000 students, which is pretty much 1/3 of the city. Our campus here is almost as big as Manchester City Centre.
The Division of Communications and Marketing communicates everything that's good about the university, both internally and externally. It's developing and it's also professionalising. The higher education sector has probably lagged behind the commercial sector for some time, but it's catching up very fast.
Our university has its very own Starbucks. If you're into Starbucks, if you're into like taking selfies with your Starbucks cup and everything, this is pretty much the place to go. If you go to Subway, you're gonna get a free cookie. If you go to McDonald's, you're gonna get a free McFlurry and so on. So the city is pretty much made for students, so make great use of it.
Student fees have increased from £3,000 to £9,000. That does mean that students want better value for money. They want more, and marketing can help and communicate what the benefits of an organisation are.
So we always have many cool different people coming over. We had some professors from many different countries. We had also movie directors and everything. You know, if you want to make a good impression and stuff, you can get job offers this way.
In higher education in the UK, traditionally, historically, communications and marketing have been very much a support function. What we're seeing now is a transformation where we're moving from a supporting role to a leadership role.
And that's the feeling that has come very, very quickly over the last few years, that it's not just about education anymore, it's also about running a business. Many universities are now businesses, and the vice-chancellors are also chief executives, and they're not shy in saying this. They have to make money, they have to make a profit.
And startlingly, what we found is that over a period of 5 years, vice-chancellors' salaries had increased by, on average, somewhere in the region of 26%, whereas in the same period, for your main grade lecturers, those people that are actually providing the service to the students, saw their pay drop in real terms by 12%. I mean, this is a clear anomaly, and you have to ask yourself the questions, why is this happening?
Reformers of the English system, similar to all those worldwide that support paying education, rely on an essential concept, an economic theory born in the 60s and that rose to fame at the end of the 90s. The human capital.
Le capital humain, c'est quoi? C'est le fait qu'on considère que un individu dispose d'un stock de compétences et de connaissances valorisables sur le marché et qui a donc une rentabilité. L'ensemble de la formation, en particulier de la formation universitaire, doit consister à accroître, à augmenter ce capital personnel. Et donc, on suppose par là que la connaissance fait partie du capital humain et va donner des revenus. Il serait donc légitime de demander à l'individu lui-même de financer la formation de ce capital. Et pour cela, de s'endetter. Il y a donc un rapport entre le coût des études et ce que les études sont censées rapporter. Mais vous voyez que, finalement, dans cette logique, la connaissance n'a plus qu'une valeur économique. Et cette valeur économique, elle est censée discipliner l'étudiant. C'est-à-dire qu'on suppose désormais que l'étudiant suivra d'autant plus assidûment ses études, qu'il sera d'autant plus sérieux, qu'il aura payé cher. On a tout réduit, dans cette logique-là, tout réduit à la dimension de la marchandise.
Influenced by the English tidal wave, in 2006 Germany also raised its tuition fees, authorizing universities to charge €1,000 per year. But oddly, within a few years, all the Länder, or federal states, slowly abandoned this policy to return to an entirely free system.
Das deutsche Verständnis von Universität als Wissenschafts-, Forschungs- und Bildungseinrichtung hat es mit sich gebracht, dass die Universität, der freie Zugang zur Universität als soziale Errungenschaft betrachtet worden ist. Die Versuche, die am Anfang dieses Jahrhunderts stattgefunden haben, Studiengebühren einzuführen in sehr schmalen Bereichen, sind alle abgebrochen worden, so dass das Studium in Deutschland weiterhin gebührenfrei ist und man frei studieren kann.
Ich glaube, dass man jetzt schon sehen kann, dass eine Skepsis gegenüber angloamerikanischen Universitäten gibt, weil Wissenschaft als Business Model zu betreiben, dort auch zunehmend mit Skepsis gesehen wird. Wenn Sie etwa sehen, welche Studiengebühren Sie bezahlen müssen, um an einer Universität wie zum Beispiel der University of Manchester, dann sind das erhebliche Investitionen. Und da fragen natürlich auch die Kunden, ob das Produkt, was sie dafür bekommen, auch tatsächlich diesen Investitionen entspricht.
Despite some resistance, the English model is spreading throughout Europe. It applies theories elaborated by large international instances, mostly by the World Bank and the OECD. From now on, the knowledge market is the new doctrine. Universities are expected to become a strategic force in wealth production. They must become like companies and industries. They must promote applied research. They must favor employability. They must produce a qualified workforce consistent with companies' desires.
Der Berufsmarkt, die Struktur der Berufe verändert sich so schnell, dass wir dafür gar nicht extra ausbilden können. Wir haben in sehr vielen Berufen, gerade im technischen Bereich inzwischen, Traineeships in den Unternehmen, wo die jungen Leute, wenn sie von der Hochschule kommen, speziell auf den Bedarf des Unternehmens nochmal ausgebildet werden. Und das ist, glaube ich, auch der richtige Weg. Wir können an der Hochschule niemals präzise auf das hin ausbilden, was die Unternehmen wollen, ob das nun in den Geistes- oder in den Ingenieurwissenschaften ist. Diese Idee der Employability halte ich für absolut fehlgegriffen und abgesehen davon, dass sie die wissenschaftliche Qualität zerstört, sie wird auch den Studenten nicht weiterhelfen.
Das britische Modell, das angloamerikanische Modell, versteht Universität völlig anders, nämlich als Berufsausbildungsinstitution. Das ist etwas, was in Deutschland in Berufsschulen gemacht wird. Dieser Unterschied ist sehr wesentlich, weil man sonst nicht versteht, dass das Bologna-System für Deutschland völlig ungeeignet war.
Today, there are 4 million students studying abroad, a trend that's on the rise. In the game of global competition, international students are very much coveted. The best research graduates are entirely taken care of. As for the huge number of students that can afford studying abroad, they represent an irresistible financial honeypot. The expression global student market has become a household term among university head offices. In France and Germany, foreign students don't pay tuition fees just yet. But a change is soon to come. In England, they contribute 14 billion euros, 10 billion pounds a year, to the national economy. A foreign student pays between 20 and 30,000 euros a year, twice as much as a European student. And it represents an additional consumer in the country, a dream client.
So the University of Manchester has about 10,000 international students, which is the most of any UK university, although as a percentage, it's not the highest. So those students are important to us for a number of reasons. They bring diversity, they bring different cultures, they bring different backgrounds, different ways of thinking. Our own students benefit from studying in an environment with students from very different backgrounds. Of course, they also bring income to the university, which is important. The largest community is Chinese students, which make up just under 40% of the total international student body.
Huge crowds lined the streets around the University of Manchester this morning for the visit of President Xi Jinping of China. Accompanied by Chancellor George Osborne, the President visited the university's £61 million National Graphene Institute. During his visit, the President met the university's 2 Nobel Prize winners, Professors Andrei Geim and Kostya Novoselov, and saw demonstrations of the wonder material graphene, the thinnest, lightest and strongest material known to man, and isolated by the Nobel Prize winners here at the university. The tour of the Graphene Institute was part of a 5-day official state visit and was a key stopping point for the head of China.
Since the early 90s, Chinese higher education is experiencing a spectacular growth. Over the course of 13 years, the number of students grew from 7 million to 35 million. Studying abroad has become an absolute must for all the Chinese nouveau riche benefiting from the economic boom. This year, over 700,000 young Chinese are studying somewhere in the world, a 400% increase in 15 years, and the trend is unlikely to reverse. A new business is multiplying worldwide. Companies enrolling students in international universities. In terms of commercial offers, universities in the US, UK and Australia clinch first place.
OK
所以说我们能给你写，把这些东西找出来，然后你自己写。那么接下来呢，像推荐信、个人陈述这些东西，我们都是帮你做的。但这个东西我也知道，2位的话肯定要去申请英国博士，要拿奖学金的。不一定呢，还是
不一定，
不一定
但奖我都可以接受。
半奖也很难拿。
半奖有没有奖学金？如果学费在120万之内的话，我可以接受。就学费加生活费120万。
140万够用，只能说是够用，但是18万左右，20万也是。如果是普通类的学校的话，会更便宜点。而且你要知道，越好的学校拿奖学金越难。就其实你们来说的话，进个世界排名前100或者6、70的这种也行，可以考虑考虑。专业排名稍微好一点的。LCE 60几啊。
所以他就吃点亏。但今年 QS 排名他稍微调整一下，我记得好像没错，应该是30。
Not all Chinese students can afford studying in leading universities, in those that truly matter. Not all students can afford to study abroad. Most of them are enrolled in universities based in their home province. They dream of a brighter future in such cities as Shanghai or Beijing. Hundreds of thousands now migrate every year to big cities. But the Chinese economic system isn't quite ready to absorb all these young graduates. Fa Dong is one of them. He studied bioengineering for 4 years in a college from his province. Today, he makes a living from odd jobs. He dreams of working in the film industry. He belongs to this new class of people that are educated but poor.
在大学期间呢，就是没有想到，就是以后来北京是这种情况。当时想可能去北京，然后就是进剧组，然后跟很多朋友在一块儿，然后没想到现在就是，生活挺艰难的也是，然后住在这地下室里。然后还是偶尔2个人挤在一个床上，有时也会，这段时间可能好一点。以前就是我们3个人挤一个床的时候也挺多的。就是来北京的好多人都是这样，住地下室啊，然后有时没有钱交房租，然后去朋友那里蹭住啊，这样的事情都很普遍。现在这个地下室呢，这一个平，就是我们2个。一块租的，就是每个月800块钱，然后就是不管谁住，不管怎么住，就是我们2个平摊。现在住在这里呢，可能就是一个过渡期，因为今年因为我刚刚毕业，然后就业就是剧组这一块认识的人也比较少，然后活也比较少，然后呢就是另一方面就是挂念着就是去电影学院蹭课，然后暂时住在这里。可能是我的打算是明年看有没有机会去考这个北京电影学院的进修班。如果能考进的话，就可能就离开这里；如果没考进的话，可能是还要住在这里，或者是其他地下室。
Despite disenchanted hopes of upward mobility, China has no intention of slowing down the development of its universities. It wants to become a key player of global higher education. The US, Australia, and Western Europe all covered this new market. Countless partnerships are entered into every year between China and foreign countries. The entire world has its eyes set on China. And China has its eyes set on the entire world. In 2003, Jiaotong University researchers developed the Shanghai Ranking, the most mediatized, the most controversial, and the most followed ranking report worldwide. A world ranking based on the number of Nobel Prizes, Fields Medals, and publications in scientific journals. The United States clearly dominates the ranking. Among the top 100, there are over 50 American universities, 8 English, 4 French, and 4 German.
So I'm afraid international rankings are important. And I say I'm afraid because I absolutely hate them. but in some parts of the world in particular, they are counted.
Rankings als solche haben also dort, wo sie stattfinden, eine Orientierungsfunktion für die Kunden. Wir sprechen nicht von Kunden, wir lehnen das ab. Und aus diesem Grunde haben wir, das heißt viele deutsche Universitäten und auch Fachgesellschaften abgelehnt, an Rankingsinstitutionen Daten und Zahlen zu liefern. Wir halten im Übrigen von der Sache her betrachtet das Ranken aufgrund von quantitativen Daten für völlig abwegig. Eine Institution, die Menschen bilden soll als Menschen, die also eine humanitäre und eine humane Aufgabe hat, die kann man nicht mit quantitativen Daten messen. In Ländern, wo diese Frage uninteressant ist, wo die Universität gar nicht die Funktion hat, Menschen qualitativ zu bilden, sondern zu schauen, wie viel Geld verdient am Ende ein Absolvent, mag das keine Rolle spielen. Aber das lehnen wir eben ab.
Whereas the criticism is substantial, very few European university presidents resist this ranking race. The narcissistic offer is tempting. Be seen and be identified as the best. And so countries increase university mergers with an explicit objective: build up the number of research labs, multiply publications, and accumulate awards. Their goal? Climb the rankings. In France, the most representative project settled in the south of Paris. 18 of the country's top leading higher education and research institutions grouped under a unique banner. Here lies the future pinnacle of French education and research, the next French Harvard, Stanford, or MIT, a pole of sheer excellence amidst fields of beetroot.
Si on veut être attractif, être visible, garder nos très bons étudiants, en attirer d'autres, garder nos très bons chercheurs, en attirer d'autres, il faut que nos établissements se transforment. Il faut inventer un modèle qui nous permette de challenger l'Université de Tokyo, de challenger l'Université de Berkeley ou l'Université de Copenhague, si on regarde des voisins européens qui sont extrêmement bien organisés. Donc on est sur des investissements qui se comptent en milliards d'euros. On va continuer à aller de l'avant et on est condamné à réussir, hein. L'Université Paris-Saclay, aujourd'hui, c'est pas encore très connu. Ce qu'il faut, c'est qu'on fasse connaître cette marque. Si on n'a pas des lieux de formation, des lieux de transformation de la connaissance en valeur économique, la France va être en perte de vitesse. Donc c'est un enjeu pour la France. Dans 10 ans, 15 ans, on sera peut-être un objet apparaissant dans le top 20, ça peut être le rêve, hein, des grandes universités mondiales. Et avoir une université française à ce niveau-là, ça serait quand même pas mal, hein.
The French have other preoccupations besides rankings. They need money, more money. France covertly envies England, but the successive governments have found it unthinkable to sharply increase tuition fees. It would be political suicide. So hypocrisy rules. Paying programs are gradually and inconspicuously being introduced in certain French university departments. At the forefront of a forthcoming marketization, prestigious institutions such as Sciences Po Paris or Paris Dauphine have been authorized to introduce tuition fees. These experiments are inconsequential for now, but they undoubtedly aim to prepare for a change in the system one day or another.
Ich betrachte die globale Entwicklung im Universitätsbereich mit großer Sorge. Aus diesem Grunde habe ich in der vergangenen Woche 50 Präsidenten eingeladen aus allen Himmelsrichtungen, um diese Frage zu erörtern. Kann Folgendes passieren, dass das gesamte hochschulische Bildungswesen zu einem Geschäft wird, zu einem Big Business, in dem Bildung zur Ware wird und nicht mehr eine soziale Errungenschaft ist, die jedem zusteht.
Over the past decade, a great many European, Asian, and African countries have introduced or increased tuition fees in their universities. In the name of excellence, prices go up a little everywhere. Nothing seems to stop the process, and yet among the forerunners, some questions arise, and for good reason.
Currently, student loan repayment debt stands at around £40 billion at the minute, unpaid. That's going to rise to around £200 billion by the middle of this century.
At the end of 2013, 1 year into the £9,000 yearly tuition fee, a parliamentary mission is called regarding the rising student debt. After several months of investigation, in Room 15 of Parliament, the Public Accounts Commission questions the public body in charge of student loan repayment.
Do you think that's realistic? 40% of the current money that goes out to students will never be collected.
At the moment, that is at the top end of our estimates, but it is not unrealistic.
Okay, so you don't quite know how you're going to fund it?
Well, the longer-term issue of lifting the cap, the Treasury announcement related in the first instance to potential sales from the future loan book. The plan would be to sell tranches of the loans.
At the moment you sell a particular tranche of debt, the terms and conditions upon which it is sold are, as it were, set in stone, they're crystallized, and the buyer of that debt buys them on those terms, and that's it, they can't change them. Can we just be clear that the person buying the debt buys it on set terms and conditions that then cannot subsequently be changed by the new owner of the debt? Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Here in the UK, the prospect of cutting the debt into tranches and selling it to private investors instantly brings to mind the disastrous mechanism of subprime loans that have shattered so many lives, so many families. 2 years ago, 30 to 40% of student loans remained unpaid. Today, it's reached 45%. We're close to the tipping point. At 47% of non-collected debt, the university system and its £9,000 yearly tuition fee will cost more to the English state than it did at the time of the £3,000 yearly tuition. England seems to be engaged in a dangerous game. In the US, the paying university system became widespread nearly 40 years ago. Today, the student debt has reached a catastrophic point. During the Occupy Wall Street movement, a handful of American citizens and research professors met with Andrew Ross, professor at New York University, the world's most expensive university. These activists' goal was to fight the unbearable debt weighing on American citizens, including the housing debt, health debt, and most importantly, the student debt.
The student debt problem in the United States is about $1.3 trillion in total, and there are about 40 million student debtors. About 8 million of those students are already in default, meaning they're not paying their loans.
People can't imagine social goods or public goods in the United States. It's unimaginable that you could have free education. So there is a kind of normalizing of a I like to say, kind of economic violence that people are used to, and they just expect that that's the way that it is, and that's the way that always will be.
The right to education has been supplanted by the right to access education loans. The imposition of debt has had the overall impact of stifling the optional political imagination of students because they're so highly indebted and they have to think about their future in very particular ways that are tied to their financial position and their financial survival in the future.
Their movement tackles a huge market of for-profit schools that have developed throughout the country in recent decades. These schools do not target the elite of American students, but the working classes, poor families likely to believe in pipe dreams.
This is what the end of capitalism kind of looks like, or at least, a different kind of, state in the capitalistic sort of environment. Because when everything leaves and all the jobs leave, people are kind of forced to work together again.
Amy and Christina are two young women from the Detroit area who grew up in working families and who couldn't enroll in the country's high-profile universities. They still believed in the prospect of a better life. Like hundreds of other young Americans, they put their fate in the hands of private for-profit educational institutions. This sector has grown by 225% over the past 10 years.
America should be ashamed to even say that their education system is this way. I mean, we were supposed to be the best country in the world. We're supposed to be the richest country in the world. But, we are the richest country in the world for the rich, but we're also the poorest country in the world for the poor in a way. Before college, I was poor. Now I'm extremely poor. There's a whole new category of people out there now. Extremely poor, however you want to word it. Poor is almost the new rich. And that's sad. When I was watching the television and seeing that they could make my life better if I went to their school, as soon as he answered the phone, it was, "Hi, how are you? My name's Terry Winters. I'll be the one to answer any questions you have and whatnot." And so he basically asked me if I would be interested in coming out to the school and looking at the campus and seeing what programs they had to offer, and said that he was a graduate there and that I should come check out the school. When you walk through the school, they have different things on the walls of jobs I could qualify for with the degree.
But they're not actually telling you the full details of everything in there. They don't tell you that there's an arbitration clause that you can't sue the school, whether individually or through a class action. So you don't really know that you're getting into a predatory lending type of situation because they don't educate you to that. They gloss over the financial aid. It's very quick, and you just initial, and then you sign at the bottom.
And then it was, oddly, he just asked, I have a couple graduates that would like to come in and speak with you. Would you have an issue talking to some recent graduates? And in my mind, I'm thinking, well, that's kind of cool. I can actually talk to some people that went to the school, see what they say about the school. So a young female and young male came in, and for all I know, it could have been the recruiters working with this recruiter. He came in, they both came in and said that, they found a job before they ever graduated, the school placed them, and that they're doing really well, and they're not struggling paying their student loan debt, and life is just so much better now. They have so many opportunities. They can jump job to job if they want.
A lot of these student advisors at these schools used to use on students to guilt them into an education. And this is a document from a for-profit college, if I could find it, that shows all the people they were going after. Welfare moms with kids, relocation, recent high school graduates, career change, upgrade skills, college freshman dropout, physically, mentally abused, pregnant ladies, recent incarceration, recent divorce, drug rehabilitation, military, active and retired, dead-end job, no future, low self-esteem, college credits 2 years, low-income jobs, vocational rehabilitation, living with multitude of families, experienced a recent death, living with parents, experienced a recent birth, living with a significant other, empty nest syndrome, fired, laid off, recent marriage, self-employed with no benefits. So they specifically targeted all these people for these type of loans that were subprime and very expensive for the education they received. And that's just, the internet's filled with all kinds of stuff like this.
My mom was extremely proud. She liked to brag to all of her friends, like, my daughter's in college and, you know, I never went and she's doing this great thing for her life. After enrolling, I called my mom and I told her I wanted to drop out, and she did not understand why. And I was like, Mom, you don't understand, this school is a scam. And she said, I don't understand, how can a school be a scam?
I have $104,000 in student loans as of September 2013, and they're only growing by the day.
How long will it take before public European universities start charging $20,000, $30,000 or $40,000 a year? How long will it take for a lucrative private educational system to skid out of control, like it is today in the US? Everywhere around the world, students are mobilizing. Can anyone out there hear them? Can anyone understand them? They question our society, our political choices. What kind of world do we want to live in? A world where the economy is at the service of man, or a world in which man is at the service of the economy?